Across the world, the most affected and real love we can find is from our parents, especially mothers. But what if this fact turns into a horrific nightmare? Yes, it has. Hello and welcome to Crime Time Reports, where we present true crime stories, solved, unsolved and mysterious cases. And today we are going to discuss the tragic case of Diane Downs. Diane Downs was born in Arizona in 1955, the daughter of a postal worker and a homemaker. As a child, she was described as a chronic liar and an attention seeker. She had a troubled relationship with her parents and was known to have run away from home multiple times. In her teenage years, Diane became sexually active and had several relationships with older men. She dropped out of high school and eventually became a postal worker like her father. In 1973, she married Steve Downs, a man she met while working at the post office. They had 3 children together: Christie, Cheryl, and Danny. Cheryl Downs was Diane and Steve's middle child. She was born in 1976 and was described as a sweet and affectionate child. Christie Downs was Diane and Steve's oldest daughter. She was born in 1974 and was described as a bright and cheerful child. Danny Downs was Diane and Steve's youngest child. He was born in 1979 and was described as a happy and energetic child. Steve Downs, her husband, was born in 1953 and grew up in Oregon. After graduating from high school, he joined the Air Force and served in Vietnam. A truly passionate men indeed. Steve met Diane while working at the post office. By the time passed, both Steve and Diane got married. Initially everything was working fine, they had 3 children and of course everything seemed to be normal. As much as a perfect life it seems, Diane was not satisfied with her life as a mother and wife. She started to have affairs with multiple men and reportedly became obsessed with the idea of having a child with one of her lovers. She also had a volatile relationship with Steve, and they separated in 1980. Downs was involved in multiple affairs with married men, including a co-worker and a married man with whom she had a child. It was also revealed that she had given birth to 3 children out of wedlock and had undergone multiple abortions. However, Steve was devastated by the loss of his children and the betrayal of his ex-wife. After being separated, it was all supposed to be normal again for Diane, but it was not up until on May 19, 1983, when Diane arrived at McKenzie-Willamette Hospital with her 3 children, all suffering from gunshot wounds. Even though the kids were brought to the hospital, unfortunately Cheryl died shortly after arriving at the hospital, while Danny was left paralyzed from the waist down, and Christie survived despite suffering a severe injury to her arm. At the hospital, Downs told the emergency room staff that a bushy-haired stranger had stopped her car on a rural road, demanded that she give him her car and shot her and her children when she refused. However, hospital staff found her behavior to be odd and her story inconsistent with the children's injuries. The hospital informed authorities on first priority. But it turned out that an anonymous witness had already called 911 before the kids were taken to the hospital. The police were contacted by a witness, Joanne Fawcett, who had encountered Downs and her children shortly after the shooting. Fawcett testified that Downs had told her that she had been shot by a stranger who had attempted to carjack her vehicle. However, Fawcett noticed that Downs' demeanor was strangely calm and that she was more concerned about the condition of her car than the welfare of her children. The investigation into the case was led by Lane County District Attorney Fred Hughey and involved multiple law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. They conducted a thorough investigation. As they dug deeper, investigators discovered that Diane had a history of dishonesty and erratic behavior. They learned that she had been having affairs with multiple men and was obsessed with one of them, a married man named Robert Knickerbocker. She had even gone so far as to tell people that she was pregnant with his child, though she was not. The police also learned that Diane had previously been investigated for child abuse, and there were concerns about her fitness as a mother. She had reportedly told friends that she didn't love her children and had even considered giving them up for adoption. As the investigation continued, the evidence against Diane mounted. Witnesses came forward to say that they had seen her car near the scene of the shooting, and ballistics evidence showed that the gun used in the shooting was consistent with one that had been in Diane's possession. The police also discovered that Diane had purchased a book about a mother who had killed her children. Based on the evidence they gathered, The investigators concluded that Diane had shot her children in an effort to free herself from the burden of motherhood so that she could pursue a relationship with Knickerbocker. She was arrested and charged with murder and attempted murder. The prosecution presented evidence of Diane's affair with Knickerbocker, her history of dishonesty, and her lack of concern for her children's well-being. The defense argued that there was not enough evidence to prove that Diane was the shooter and that the prosecution's case was based on circumstantial evidence. In the end, Diane was convicted of 1 count of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder and was sentenced to life in prison plus 50 years. Despite her continued claims of innocence, she remains behind bars to this day. If you love to hear solved, unsolved and mysterious cases, do subscribe to Crime Time Reports and comment down what do you think about this event and how it would have been prevented.